The sun began to set over the rocky mountains of New Hanguk. Orange and purple colors filled the sky as darkness crept across the land. Gina checked her equipment one more time before looking at her watch. She was running late. I need to get these samples back to the base before dark, she said to herself. Gina was 17 years old and worked as a junior scientist at the research station. Most people on the colony world feared the large flying reptiles called skydrakes. But Gina found them interesting. She wanted to learn all about them. The wind picked up as Gina packed the last soil sample into her bag. Suddenly, her small hover transport made a strange noise. Smoke began to rise from the engine. No, not now, Gina groaned. She tried the controls, but nothing happened. The transport was broken. She was stuck in Skydrace territory as night was coming. Gina looked at her map. The base was too far to walk. She would need to find shelter and call for help in the morning. Her communication device had poor signal in the mountains. Stay calm, she told herself. Just find a cave or something for the night. She grabbed her emergency pack and began walking. The mountains were quiet except for the sound of her boots on the rocky ground. As she climbed over a ridge, Gina froze. A strange sound echoed through the valley below. It was like nothing she had heard before, part roar, part cry of pain. Gina carefully looked over the edge. In the valley was the largest skydrace she had ever seen. Its scales shimmered with blue and green colors even in the fading light. The creature must have been at least 15 meters long from nose to tail. Its powerful wings were folded against its body as it thrashed on the ground. Something was wrong. The skydrace was in pain. All her training told her to stay away. Skydrakes were the most dangerous animals on the planet. They could tear apart the strongest metals with their claws and teeth. Their fire glands could shoot burning liquid over 50 meters. They had killed 12 colonists last year alone. But Gina couldn't leave. The scientist in her was too curious. She took out her small viewer and zoomed in on the creature. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered. The skydrace rolled on the ground, shaking its massive head from side to side. It kept pawing at its face with its front claws, but they were too large to reach properly. Gina zoomed in closer on its head. There, in one of the specialized breathing nostrils on top of its head, she could see something shiny. It wasn't natural. It looked like metal. Something stuck in its breathing hole, she realized. Skydrakes had evolved special breathing systems to filter the unique air of this planet. The main nostril allowed them to take in large amounts of oxygen quickly. If that was blocked, the Skydrace couldn't breathe properly. No wonder it was in such pain. Gina knew she should leave, find shelter, wait for rescue in the morning. That was the smart thing to do. Instead, she began to climb down into the valley. "This is crazy," she muttered to herself. "Completely crazy." As her feet touched the valley floor, the skydrace suddenly stopped moving. Its giant head turned toward her. Eyes bigger than dinner plates fixed on her small form. The yellow eyes had narrow black slits that widened as they watched her. Gina froze. Her heart beat so fast she thought it might burst from her chest. The skydrace could kill her with one snap of its massive jaws. It could burn her to nothing with one blast from its fire glands, but it didn't move. It just watched her. Gina slowly raised her hands to show she had no weapons. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said softly, even though she knew the creature couldn't understand human speech. The skydrace made a low, rumbling sound. It lowered its head slightly. Gina took a small step forward, then another. The creature didn't move to attack. Instead, it seemed to be watching her with something like hope. Could that be possible? She remembered something her teacher Hyun had said during a class. "We know very little about skydrace intelligence. Our tests suggest they may be smarter than we think." Gina was now close enough to see the object stuck in the breathing nostril clearly. It was a jagged piece of metal, probably from the illegal mining operations in these mountains. It had become lodged deep in the sensitive breathing passage. The skydrace was slowly suffocating. "I think I can help you," Gina said softly. "But you need to stay very still." As if understanding her words, the massive creature lowered its head to the ground. It was an invitation, or a plea for help. Gina opened her pack and took out her sample collection tools. Her hands shook as she approached the Skydrace's head. Its breath came in short, pained gasps. The hot air blew across her face with each exhale. "Just stay calm," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to the Skydrace or herself. The metal piece was wedged tightly in the breathing passage. Gina could see it had sharp edges that had cut the sensitive tissue inside. No wonder the creature was in such pain. Using her longest sample tweezer, Gina carefully reached into the nostril. The Skydrace flinched slightly but remained still. She could feel its eyes watching her every move. "Almost got it," she said through gritted teeth. The metal shard was slippery with blood and mucus. Twice it slipped from her grasp. On the third try, she managed to get a good grip on it. With a steady pull, she extracted the jagged metal piece from the breathing passage. The Skydrace immediately took a massive breath. Its whole body seemed to expand as its primary breathing system worked properly again. Gina stepped back quickly, holding the bloody metal shard in her tweezers. "There you go. All better now." The creature rose to its full height. Standing on all fours, it towered over Gina like a living mountain. Its wings unfurled slightly, catching the last rays of the setting sun. Gina knew she should run. The creature was free of pain now and might see her as a meal. But something in those intelligent yellow eyes kept her rooted to the spot. The Skydrace lowered its massive head until it was level with her face. Gina could see her own reflection in its pupil. She held her breath. Then gently, the creature moved forward and touched its snout to her outstretched hand. The contact lasted only a moment before the Skydrace pulled back. It regarded her for another long moment, before spreading its enormous wings. With a powerful push of its hind legs, the Skydrace launched into the air. The downdraft from its wings nearly knocked Gina over. She watched as the magnificent creature circled once overhead before disappearing into the darkening sky. Gina stood alone in the valley, heart racing, barely believing what had just happened. She looked down at the metal shard still held in her tweezers. "No one at the base is going to believe this," she said to the empty air. As night fell completely, Gina found a small cave to shelter in. As she set up her emergency beacon, she couldn't help but wonder if she would ever see that particular Skydrace again. Little did she know, high above in the night sky, a pair of yellow eyes watched over her resting place, standing guard until morning. The rescue team found Gina early the next morning. They arrived in a large transport with guns ready, expecting to find her injured or worse. Instead, they found her calmly waiting outside the small cave where she had spent the night. "What happened to your hover transport?" asked Deho, the head of security. His face showed both relief and confusion. "Engine failure," Gina said simply. She decided not to mention the Skydrace yet. Who would believe her story? Back at the research base, Gina went straight to her small lab. She placed the metal shard she had removed from the Skydrace into a clear container. Under the bright lights, she could see it better. It was definitely from mining equipment. Illegal mining that was not supposed to happen in these mountains. "Where have you been?" Gina turned to see Hyun, her mentor and the head scientist of the base, standing in the doorway. He was in his 50s with gray streaks in his black hair. His eyes were kind, but worried. "My transport broke down in the northern highlands," Gina explained. "I had to spend the night in a cave." Hyun frowned. "The northern highlands? That's deep in Skydrace territory. You're lucky to be alive." Gina hesitated, then decided to tell the truth. "I saw one. A Skydrace. It was huge. The biggest one I've ever seen in any of our records." "You saw a Skydrace up close and you're still here to talk about it?" Hyun raised his eyebrows in disbelief. Gina pointed to the container with the metal shard. It had this stuck in its main breathing nostril. It was in pain and couldn't breathe properly. Hyun's eyes widened as he understood what she was saying. You helped it?" "Yes." "And it didn't attack you?" "No. It seemed to understand I was trying to help." Gina described how the creature had remained still while she removed the shard, and how it had touched its snout to her hand before flying away. Hyun sat down heavily on a nearby stool. This is amazing. In 10 years of studying skydraces, we've never recorded behavior like this. They've always been aggressive toward humans. Maybe we don't understand them as well as we think, Gina suggested. Hyun looked thoughtful. Maybe. You're right. He picked up the container with the metal shard. This is from the illegal mining operations. I'll report it to the Colony Council. The next few days passed normally. Gina continued her regular work, but she couldn't stop thinking about the skydrace. Each night, she dreamed of yellow eyes and shimmering scales. 5 days after the incident, Gina was collecting plant samples near the edge of the base when she felt someone watching her. She looked up from her work and gasped. On the ridge above the base stood the skydrace. Its blue-green scales caught the sunlight, making them shine like jewels. It was far enough away that the base's security sensors wouldn't detect it, but close, enough that Gina could see it clearly. The creature seemed to nod its massive head at her before spreading its wings and flying away. It came back, Gina whispered to herself. The next day, it appeared again, this time on a different ridge. And the day after that, Gina spotted it circling high above the base just out of range of the defense weapons. She told no one. She feared the security team would try to shoot the skydrace if they knew it was watching the base. A week after her encounter in the mountains, Gina was in Hyun's office discussing her findings when an alarm blared throughout the base. Attention, all personnel. Unknown transport approaching from the south. All security teams to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Hyun rushed to his computer and pulled up the security feed. A large transport ship with no colony markings was approaching the base. Pirates, Hyun said grimly. Or corporate spies. Either way, they're not friendly. The base's security team mobilized quickly, but they were researchers, not soldiers. They were not prepared for a serious attack. The unknown ship landed just outside the base perimeter. Armed people in black uniforms poured out and began firing at the security fence. They're trying to break in, Hyun said. We need to secure the research. Data. Gina helped Hyun download all their important files onto a small drive. The sounds of fighting grew louder. The base's security team was losing ground. We need to get to the emergency bunker, Hyun said. He grabbed Gina's arm and pulled her toward the door. They ran through the hallways of the research building. Other scientists were also rushing toward the safety of the underground bunker. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the building. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking the path to the bunker. This way, Hyun said, pulling Gina down a side corridor. There's another exit. They burst out of a door onto the east side of the compound. The fighting was concentrated on the south side, so this area was clear for now. They could see the emergency landing pad about 100 meters away. If we can reach that, there's a small shuttle we can use to escape, Hyun said. They ran across the open ground. They were halfway to the landing pad when 3 figures in black uniforms stepped out from behind a building, blocking their path. Stop. Right there, one of the attackers ordered, pointing a weapon at them. Hyun pushed Gina behind him protectively. What do you want? He asked. We know you're the lead researcher, the attacker said to Hyun. You're coming with us. We want your research on this planet's resources. Gina could feel her heart pounding in her chest. They were in serious trouble. The security team was busy fighting on the other side of the base. No one would come to help them. Just as the attackers moved forward to grab them, a strange sound filled the air. It was like nothing Gina had heard before, a high-pitched screech that made her cover her ears. The attackers looked up in confusion. Their faces changed from confusion to terror as a massive shadow passed over them. With a deafening roar, the skydrace, her skydrace, dropped from the sky. It landed with earth-shaking force between Gina and the attackers. Its tail lashed out, knocking 2 of the attackers off their feet. The third raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the skydrace opened its mouth and released a stream of burning liquid. The attacker screamed and ran, his uniform on fire. Gina stood frozen in shock. The skydrace turned its massive head toward her. Those familiar yellow eyes found hers. There was intelligence in that gaze. Intelligence and purpose. More attackers appeared, drawn by the commotion. They opened fire on the Skydrace. Most of their bullets bounced off its thick scales, but a few found softer spots, drawing dark blood. The Skydrace roared in pain and anger. It spread its wings to their full span, making itself look even more massive. Then it charged the attackers, claws extended and fire glands glowing with deadly heat. "We need to move now," Hyun said, grabbing Gina's arm again. "While it's distracted." "No," Gina said firmly. "It's protecting us. It came to help me." Hyun stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible." "It's the same one I helped in the mountains," Gina insisted. "It recognized me." Before Hyun could argue further, the Skydrace returned to them. The attackers were either gone or lying motionless on the ground. The creature was breathing heavily, and blood dripped from several wounds on its body. It lowered its head until it was level with Gina. She reached out slowly and placed her hand on its snout just as she had done in the mountains. The Skydrace made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a purr. "It saved us," Hyun whispered in awe. In the distance, they could hear more fighting. The attack on the base was not over. The Skydrace suddenly nudged Gina with its snout, pushing her toward its side. It lowered its body to the ground and extended one wing like a ramp. "I think," Gina said slowly, hardly believing her own words. "It wants us to climb on its back." "You can't be serious," Hyun said, staring at the Skydrace with wide eyes. "We can't ride on its back." Gina looked from Hyun to the Skydrace and back again. The creature was waiting patiently, its wings still extended like a ramp. In the distance, the sounds of fighting grew louder. "We don't have much choice," Gina said. "More attackers are coming this way." The Skydrace made a low rumbling sound, as if agreeing with her. It turned its yellow eyes to Hyun, waiting. "This breaks every rule of animal behavior," Hyun muttered. But he followed Gina as she carefully climbed onto the Skydrace's back. The creature's scales were smooth and warm under Gina's hands. She found a good spot to sit just behind its powerful shoulders where its neck joined its body. Hyun climbed on behind her, his movements slow and unsure. "Hold on to me," Gina told him, "and I'll hold on to the Skydrace." No sooner had Hyun wrapped his arms around Gina's waist than the Skydrace stood up. Gina grabbed onto two large scales that formed a natural handhold. The ground seemed very far away now that they were on the back of the massive creature. "What do we do now?" Hyun asked. His voice shook with fear. Before Gina could answer, the Skydrace spread its enormous wings. With a powerful push of its hind legs, it leaped into the air. Gina and Hyun both cried out as their stomachs dropped with the sudden movement. The Skydrace's wings beat powerfully, lifting them higher and higher above the research base. Gina held on tightly, her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The wind rushed past her face as they soared into the sky. Below them, they could see the full scale of the attack. The unknown ship had landed just outside the base, and at least 20 armed attackers were fighting with the base's security team. Several buildings were on fire. "They're trying to get into the main research building," Hyun shouted over the wind. "That's where all our original data is stored." The Skydrace seemed to understand. It circled once, high above the base, then suddenly folded its wings and dove toward the attackers. Gina and Hyun screamed as they plummeted toward the ground. Just before it would have crashed, the Skydrace opened its wings again, slowing their descent. It landed hard between the attackers and the main research building, using its body as a shield. The impact sent Gina and Hyun tumbling from its back onto the ground. "Are you okay?" Gina asked Hyun as they both got to their feet. "I think so," Hyun said, looking dazed. "But we need to get out of here." The Skydrace roared at the attackers, who had turned their weapons toward the unexpected threat. Bullets bounced off its thick scales as it advanced on them, breathing fire and swinging its powerful tail. "Run for the bunker," Hyun said, pulling Gina toward the nearest building. "The path should be clear now." They ran as fast as they could, dodging debris from damaged buildings. Behind them, the sounds of the Skydrace's attack filled the air. Roars, screams, and the whoosh of its fire breath. They reached the entrance to the underground bunker and found several other scientists already inside. Everyone stared at them in shock. What was that thing doing here? Asked Min, one of the younger scientists. I saw you two on its back. It's a long story, Gina said, catching her breath. But it's helping us. That's impossible, said Director Quan, the head of the base. Skydraces are mindless killers. With all due respect, Director, you're wrong, Hyun said. The older scientist's face was serious. Gina has formed some kind of bond with this creature. It came here specifically to protect her. Outside, the sounds of fighting had changed. The attackers were retreating to their ship, pursued by the Skydrace. The creature's roars were triumphant now. Whatever is happening, it seems to be working in our favor, Director Quan admitted. Our security team was outnumbered. Without that Skydrace's help, we might have lost the base. A security officer ran into the bunker. Director, the attackers are retreating. They're getting back on their ship. Everyone rushed to the bunker's monitor screens. They showed the attackers' ship preparing for takeoff, with the remaining attackers running up the ramp. The Skydrace was not letting them escape so easily. It charged the ship, ramming its side with its massive head. The ship tilted dangerously before its engines fired fully. As it began to rise, the Skydrace leaped up and latched onto one of the ship's wings with its powerful claws. It's going to bring down the ship, someone gasped. The ship struggled to gain height with the Skydrace's weight pulling it down. It tilted sideways, one engine failing. With a final powerful bite, the Skydrace tore off a chunk of the wing and let go, dropping safely to the ground as the damaged ship spun out of control. The attacker's ship crashed just beyond the base perimeter, exploding in a ball of fire. No one could have survived. It saved us all, Gina whispered. The security team cautiously emerged from their positions, weapons still ready but no longer firing. The Skydrace stood tall amid the damaged buildings, its scales reflecting the flames from the crashed ship. It turned slowly, searching. It's looking for you, Hyun said to Gina. Gina walked out of the bunker, ignoring the warnings from Director Quan and the others. As soon as she appeared, the Skydrace's posture changed. It lowered its head and made that same purring sound Gina had heard before. She walked right up to the massive creature, aware of everyone watching in amazement. The Skydrace lowered its head until Gina could touch its snout. Thank you, she said softly, placing her hand on its warm scales. To everyone's shock, the Skydrace closed its eyes at her touch, looking almost peaceful despite the destruction around them. This changes everything we thought we knew about Skydraces, Hyun said, joining Gina beside the creature. The Skydrace opened one eye to look at him but didn't move away. They're intelligent, Gina said. More intelligent than we ever realized. And this one remembers that I helped it. Over the next few days, the research base began repairs. The attackers had been identified as agents from a rival corporation that wanted the base's research data. Thanks to the Skydrace, they had failed. The Skydrace refused to leave. It made a nest for itself on a nearby ridge, close enough to watch over the base but far enough not to trigger the security systems. Director Quan had ordered the defense weapons to be reprogrammed not to target this particular Skydrace. What are you going to name it? Hyun asked Gina as they watched the creature from the observation deck. Tai, Gina said after a moment's thought. It means great in Old Korean, and he is great. He? Hyun raised an eyebrow. Just a feeling I have, Gina said with a small smile. 3 days after the attack, Gina woke in the middle of the night with a strange feeling. Her head felt fuzzy and there was a weird pressure behind her eyes. She got out of bed and went to her window. Tae was sitting just outside the base perimeter, his yellow eyes glowing in the darkness. When he saw Gina at the window, he made a small movement with his head. The pressure in Gina's head increased. With a gasp, she suddenly understood. Tae was trying to communicate with her. This is impossible, she whispered, pressing her hands to her temples. But the feeling persisted. Images flashed in her mind. Mountains, caves, other Skydraces. None of it made sense yet. But one thing was clear. Tae wanted to show her something. The next morning, Gina went straight to Hyun's lab. I need a brain scan, she said without preamble. Hyun looked up from his work in surprise. Are you feeling ill? No, Gina said. But something strange is happening. I think Tai is trying to communicate with me. Hyun's scientific curiosity immediately took over. He led Gina to the medical lab and set up the brain scanner. As the machine hummed around her head, Gina closed her eyes and tried to focus on the strange pressure she had felt. When the scan was complete, Hyun stared at the results in amazement. "This is incredible," he said. "Your brain is showing activity patterns I've never seen before. It's almost as if new neural pathways are forming." "What does that mean?" Gina asked. Hyun looked at her with a mixture of excitement and concern. "It means, Gina, that your brain is changing, and I think it's because of your connection with Tai." "Is it dangerous?" "I don't know," Hyun admitted. "This is completely new territory, but I think Tai is trying to establish a deeper connection with you. A mental connection." Gina looked out the window to where Tai was visible on his ridge. The Skydrace was watching the base, watching over her. "I need to know what he wants to show me," she said quietly. "This could be the biggest scientific discovery in the history of this colony," Hyun said. "A human communicating with a Skydrace." Gina nodded, but inside she was nervous. Something big was happening and she was at the center of it. Tae had protected her, saved the base, and now wanted to show her something important. The question was, what? A week after the attack on the base, Gina stood before Director Kwon and the colony's leadership council. Hyun stood beside her, ready to support her unusual request. "You want to do what?" Director Kwon asked, his face showing his disbelief. "I want permission to fly with Tae into the mountains," Gina repeated. "He is trying to show me something important." The 5 council members looked at each other with doubt on their faces. They had all seen the brain scans and had to admit that something strange was happening between Gina and the Skydrace. But this request seemed too dangerous. "The Skydraces live deep in the northern mountains," said Councilmember Park. "No human has ever gone there and returned." "Tae will protect me," Gina said with confidence. "He already saved the base. He won't let anything harm me." Hyun stepped forward. "As Gina's mentor and the head scientist here, I believe this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The scientific knowledge we could gain is enormous." "And if she doesn't come back?" asked Director Kwon. "If this creature leads her into a trap?" Gina felt a wave of anger at this suggestion. Without thinking, she snapped, "Tae is not a trap. He is my friend." The pressure behind her eyes increased suddenly. Gina winced and pressed her hand to her temple. "Are you all right?" Hyun asked with concern. "He's trying to reach me again," Gina said quietly. The pressure grew, and with it came flashes of images. Mountains, caves, other Skydraces, and something else. Something bigger. Gina gasped as the mental picture became clearer. "There's a storm coming?" she said, her voice distant. "A big one. Tae knows about it. That's what he wants to show me." The council members stared at her. Director Kwon looked out the window at the clear blue sky. "There's no storm coming. The weather satellites show clear skies for the next week." "Not that kind of storm," Gina insisted. "Something else. Something the satellites can't see." Hyun looked thoughtful. "The Skydraces have lived on this planet much longer than we have. They might know things about it that we haven't discovered yet." After much debate, the council finally agreed to Gina's request, but with conditions. She would wear a tracking device and carry emergency supplies. Hyun would monitor her vital signs from the base, and she would have to return within 24 hours. Tadu. Next morning, Gina stood outside the base perimeter waiting. Tae had not been at his usual spot on the ridge, but Gina knew he would come. She could feel his presence somehow, getting closer. Hyun checked her backpack one more time. Emergency beacon, water, food, medical kit. The tracking device is working. We'll know where you are at all times. "I'll be fine," Gina assured him. "Tae won't let anything happen to me." "I wish I could go with you," Hyun said. Gina shook her head. "The mental connection is only between me and Tae. He's only inviting me." A shadow passed over them. They looked up to see Tae circling down from the sky. He landed with surprising grace for such a large creature. His scales shimmered in the morning sunlight, blues and greens mixing together like an ocean scene from space. Gina walked forward to greet him. Tay lowered his massive head and made the purring sound that Gina had come to recognize as a greeting. She placed her hand on his snout. "Hello, friend," she said softly. "I'm ready to see what you want to show me." Tay's yellow eyes seemed to shine with approval. He lowered his body to the ground and extended his wing just as he had done during the attack. Gina turned to Hyun. "I'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry." "Be careful," Hyun said, giving her a quick hug. "And take lots of notes. This is still a scientific mission." Gina climbed onto Tay's back, finding the spot behind his shoulders that seemed made for a rider. As soon as she was secure, Tay stood up and spread his wings. With a powerful leap, they were airborne. Flying on Tay's back was nothing like being in a ship or transport. It was wild and free. The wind rushed past Gina's face as Tay's powerful wings carried them higher and higher. Below, the research base grew smaller until it was just a speck in the valley. Tay flew north toward the highest mountains. Gina knew this was Skydrace territory, where no human had ever gone before. The mountains grew taller and more jagged. Snow covered the highest peaks even though it was summer in the valleys. After almost 2 hours of flying, Tay began to descend. He circled a particularly tall mountain that had a flat top like it had been cut off. As they got closer, Gina could see that there was a large cave opening in the side of the mountain. Tay landed on a ledge outside the cave. Gina slid off his back, her legs shaky after the long flight. She looked around in wonder. They were so high up that she could see for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. The colony's main settlement was visible as a tiny cluster of buildings far to the south. The cave entrance was huge, easily big enough for a Skydrace to enter. Tay nudged Gina gently with his snout, encouraging her to go inside. "You want me to go in there?" Gina asked. Tay made a rumbling sound that Gina somehow understood as yes. The mental connection between them was growing stronger. She could feel his emotions now, eagerness mixed with concern. Gina took a deep breath and stepped into the cave. Tay followed close behind her. The cave was dark at first, but as they went deeper, Gina noticed something strange. The walls were glowing with a soft blue light. "What is this?" she whispered in awe. The cave widened into an enormous cavern. Gina stopped in shock. The entire space was filled with Skydraces, dozens of them, of all sizes. Some were even bigger than Tay, with scales that showed their great age. Others were small, clearly young ones. All of them turned to look at Gina, the only human who had ever entered their sacred place. For a moment, Gina was terrified. One Skydrace was her friend. But a whole cave full of them? They could destroy her in seconds. Tay made a loud roaring sound that echoed through the cavern. It wasn't an angry roar, but something else. A signal. An introduction. To Gina's surprise, the other Skydraces didn't attack. They watched her with curious eyes. Some of the smaller ones even came closer to get a better look. "They know I'm with you," Gina said to Tay. "They know you brought me here." Tay nudged her forward toward the back of the cave. As they walked, the other Skydraces moved aside to create a path. Gina felt like she was in a dream. Never had. She imagined being surrounded by so many of these magnificent creatures. At the very back of the cave was a wall covered in strange markings. They looked like they had been carved by claws, but they formed clear patterns, almost like writing. Gina stared at the wall in amazement. "Did your people make these?" she asked Tay. The pressure behind her eyes increased again. Images flooded her mind. Skydraces carving the wall, generation after generation adding to it. It was their history, but there was more. As Gina studied the markings, she began to understand. They weren't just history. They were warnings. The markings showed a cycle repeating over and over. Normal times, then something from the sky, then destruction, then rebuilding. "A cycle of disasters," Gina whispered. "That's what you wanted, to show me." Tay made a sound of agreement. The pressure in Gina's head changed, focusing her attention on one part of the wall. It showed the current time in the cycle. And next came the disaster. "It's coming soon, isn't it?" Gina asked. "The thing from the sky." Tay's mental message was clear now. Yes, soon. Very soon. Gina realized with a chill that this was why Tay had bonded with her. The Skydraces knew something terrible was about to happen to the planet, something they had survived before. But that would destroy the human colony if they weren't warned. "I have to tell the others," Gina said. "We have to prepare." Tay lowered, his head in agreement. The other Skydraces watched silently as Gina took photos of the wall with her small camera. She would need proof to convince the council. As they prepared to leave, the largest and oldest Skydrace in the cave approached them. Its scales were a deep blue, almost black with age. It looked at Gina with ancient eyes full of wisdom. The old Skydrace touched its snout to Tay's in what seemed like a blessing. Then, to Gina's shock, it lowered its massive head and touched her gently on the forehead. The mental connection that flooded into Gina's mind was overwhelming. Unlike the simple images from Tay, this was complex knowledge, history, understanding, warning. When the old Skydrace pulled away, Gina was shaking. She knew now. She understood what was coming. "We have less time than I thought," she said to Tay. "We need to go back now." As they flew back toward the colony, faster than before, Gina's mind was racing. How would she convince the council? Would they believe her? And even if they did, could they prepare in time? The storm from space was coming, and the colony had only days to prepare. Gina and Tay landed at the research base just as the sun was setting. People came running from all directions, amazed to see the human girl riding on the back of the massive Skydrace. Gina slid down from Ty's back, her legs shaky from the long flight. "Gina." Hyun rushed forward to meet her. "You're back early. Did something happen?" "We need to call an emergency meeting," Gina said, her voice urgent. "Right now. The whole council needs to hear this." Within an hour, Gina stood before Director Kwan and the Leadership Council. The meeting room was packed with scientists and security officers who had heard about Gina's return and wanted to know what she had discovered. "I know what Ty wanted to show me," Gina began. She connected her camera to the display screen and showed everyone the pictures of the cave markings. The Skydraces have been on this planet for thousands of years. They have history, they have knowledge, and they know something is coming. "What kind of something?" Director Kwan asked, his face serious. Gina took a deep breath. "A radiation storm from space. It happens every 200 years when this planet passes through a special part of space. The radiation comes from a nearby star that sends out bursts of energy in cycles." Hyun studied the markings with growing concern. "These look like they're showing massive solar flares or something similar." "Yes," Gina said. "The Skydraces have evolved to survive these radiation storms. Their scales protect them. But the storm will kill humans. It will destroy our electronics. And it's coming in less than 3 days." The room erupted in worried talk. Director Kwan raised his hands for silence. "Are you sure about this?" he asked Gina. "This is a very serious claim." "I'm sure," Gina said firmly. "The oldest Skydrace shared this knowledge with me through our mental connection. And there's more. The reason the Skydraces have always been hostile to humans is because they knew this was coming. They didn't want us to build our colony here because they knew we would die when the radiation came. But our satellites haven't detected any unusual solar activity," said Council Member Lee. "The radiation comes from a different direction than the main sun," Gina explained. "And it's not visible until it hits the atmosphere. By then it's too late." Hyun stepped forward. "Actually, we have noticed some strange readings in the upper atmosphere over the past few weeks. Nothing dangerous yet, but unusual. We thought it was just normal space weather." "It's the beginning of the storm," Gina said. "It will get much worse very soon." Director Kwan looked troubled. "If what you're saying is true, we don't have time to evacuate the whole colony. There are over 5,000 people here now. We don't need to evacuate," Gina said. "The Skydraces have a solution." She explained what the ancient Skydrace had shared with her. Deep in the mountains were caves lined with a special mineral that blocked the harmful radiation. The Skydraces would gather there during the storms, protected from the deadly energy. If we can move the colonists to these caves, they'll be safe, Gina said. But we need to start now, and we need the Skydraces to help us. You expect us to trust our lives to creatures that have killed our people? Council Member Park asked, in disbelief. They only attacked humans who threatened them or entered their territory without permission, Gina argued. They're intelligent beings, not mindless monsters, and they're willing to help us now. How do you know that? Director Kwan asked. Gina walked to the window and pointed outside. In the fading light, they could all see Tai sitting patiently. But he wasn't alone anymore. At least 20 other Skydraces had joined him, their scales shimmering in various shades of blue and green. Because they're already here, Gina said simply. The sight of so many Skydraces outside the base caused panic at first. Security teams rushed to their positions, weapons ready, but Gina ran outside and stood between the humans and the Skydraces. Stop, she shouted. They're here to help us. Slowly, the truth of the situation sank in. The council had little choice but to believe Gina. When the colony's scientific team confirmed that unusual radiation levels were indeed rising in the upper atmosphere. Something was coming, just as Gina had warned. The next 2 days were a blur of activity. Every available transport was used to move people to the mountain caves, but there weren't enough vehicles to evacuate everyone in time. That's when the Skydraces truly showed their noble nature. Led by Tay, they offered to carry humans on their backs. At first, most colonists were too frightened to accept, but when Gina demonstrated by flying with Tay, others slowly overcame their fear. Hyun was the first to volunteer after Gina. If you trust them, so do I, he told her, as he climbed onto the back of a blue-scaled Skydrace. One by one, other brave colonists followed. Soon the sky was filled with Skydraces carrying humans toward the safety of the mountains. Gina and Tai worked tirelessly, making trip after trip. The mental connection between them grew stronger with each passing hour. Gina could now understand Tay's thoughts without effort, and he could understand her words. Thank you, she told him during a brief rest. Without you, we would all die. Tay's mental response was simple but profound. You saved me. Now we save each other. By the night, before the radiation storm was due to hit, almost all colonists had been moved to the caves. Only a small team remained at the base, securing the most important equipment and preparing the buildings as best they could. Gina stood with Director Kwan and Hyun, watching the last transports being loaded. I still can't believe this is happening, Director Kwan said. Everything we thought we knew about the Skydraces was wrong. Not everything, Hyun said. They are dangerous predators, but they're also intelligent beings with their own society. We just never took the time to understand them. Until Gina, Director Kwan said, giving her a rare smile. You've changed everything, young lady. The sky that night showed the first signs of the coming storm. Strange lights danced across the horizon, beautiful but deadly. The radiation levels were already rising to dangerous levels. The last group prepared to leave the base. Gina climbed onto Tay's back one more time, ready for their final trip to the caves. As they soared above the colony, Gina looked down at what had been her home. Would anything survive the radiation? Only time would tell. But at least the people would live thanks to the Skydraces. The caves were crowded but safe. The special minerals in the walls blocked the harmful radiation just as the Skydraces had promised. For 3 days, humans and Skydraces sheltered together as the storm raged outside. It was strange at first. Most humans were still afraid of the massive predators, but seeing Gina and Tay together helped ease their fears. Some of the braver children even began to approach the smaller Skydraces, offering them bits of food. When the storm finally passed, the colonists emerged to survey the damage. Many buildings had been destroyed by the radiation. Equipment had failed. It would take months, maybe years, to rebuild. But something new had been born in those caves. A connection between two species that had once feared each other. 1 month after the storm, Gina stood with Tai on a hill overlooking the rebuilding colony. New buildings were going up, designed with help from the Skydraces to better withstand the planet's challenges. Several other humans had begun to form bonds with Skydraces, following Gina's example. "We have a long way to go," Gina said, stroking Tay's scales. "But we're doing it together now." Tay's mental voice had grown clearer in her mind with each passing day. "Two kinds, one world," he replied. "Better together." Gina smiled and climbed onto his back. They took off into the clear blue sky, human and sky drays, protector and protected. Two worlds united by one act of kindness. For Gina had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the fiercest protector is found in the most unexpected place, and the smallest act of compassion can change the course of two worlds forever.